ready for the SFL, Sifted Fantasy League Draft for 2022. We have not changed the rules this year, although, however, I did screw up the graphics for this. We still only have 2 alternates. Right there, there's 3 slots showing for alternates. We only have 2 this year, just like we have in the last couple years. So for those of you who may be watching this for the first time, although it's kind of hard, Matt, because now there is a website for pop culture fantasy drafts. Mm-hmm. Someone took the idea and built an entire website to do it, which is very flattering. It's become such a thing now. Nobody realizes that we were the first to do it. Whatever.
I can't find an earlier example of it.
Yeah. We're the first. Absolutely, we're the first. I had sat on the idea for a while. I had kind of had the idea when I was working at Game Trailers, and then we never got around to it, and then I left, and then I was like, okay, well, one of the first things I do when I start Sifted is I'm going to do a video game draft. And then Marcus and I did it on the second or third episode ever of Game Face, I think it was, when you were our TriCaster TD. And we've been doing it ever since. I know what it's
like to be thrown into that shark pool 3 days in.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm clipping the world in this thing.
Yeah. And it is, I've never done this as a TriCaster TD. I've never done our draft. I'm a little nervous. I'm really going to screw it up. This is the part of today's stream that I said, show me a little leniency, because this could be a problem. I mean,
just don't click on the final graphic and show all the games all at once.
The last, right. Yeah. I won't do that. There's no way I'll spoil our draft. So anyway, how we do this, our drafts are actually pretty simple compared to how people are doing them now. If you go to that website that everybody's using, it's pretty complicated as far as how people are doing their drafts. Ours are very simple. Matt and I just take turns picking games until we have 10 games apiece. And then we pick 2 alternates. And essentially how the alternates work is if any of our 10 games get delayed out of the year, instead of getting a 0, you slide up your alternates into those slots. Now, you only have 2. So if you have more than 2 games that get delayed out of the year, you end up getting a 0 for one of your 10 games.
And they're in order. Yeah,
and they're in order too. So your first alternate, if you lose a game, it's the first game that slides up. You don't get to choose which of your alternates goes in. And then at the end of the year, we just add up the aggregate scores of our 10 games, and whoever has the highest score ends up winning the league. I have won 2 years in a row. I would give myself a round of applause for that, but it's too hard to get to right now. But I have won the last 2 years in a row. Matt's trying to knock me out, keep me from going for the 3-peat this year. This draft was easier and more difficult than usual. Mm-hmm. Because there were so many great games to pick from, but I felt like I was splitting hairs a lot of times trying to figure out which ones to pick or which ones not to. We take turns every year with who gets the first pick. Matt had the first pick last year, so I have the first pick this year. How overall did you feel like the draft went for you, Matt, before we dive in? Just generalizing.
I think solid.
Yeah.
There are two games that are potential risks that I picked, but I picked them intentionally because the alternates are no doubts.
Yep. Okay.
Although the alternates are not, I think, high scorers necessarily, but they are definitely coming out. And as we've established in the past, it's better to have a 70 than a 0.
It is. Absolutely. Let me just get the interface on the TriCaster here sized up a little better, because there's so many graphics in this that I need to resize things just a little bit. Okay, I think we're ready to kick off. Again, I had the first pick of the draft this year, and it was a hard first pick, and I still don't feel great about it, Matt, to be perfectly honest with you.
No?
No.
I think this is a clear first pick.
I mean, if it comes out...
Yeah, I will.
I'm not 100% sure on that one. But my first pick in the SFL 2022 draft is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2.
Or whatever it ends up being called.
Yes, just the next 3D Zelda, I guess, is maybe the best way to put it. I'm nervous, Matt. They still haven't really announced it as coming out this year.
Yeah, it's got to come out this year.
You think?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know.
I don't have any doubts about this one this year.
Really?
Unless something really weird happens, but that could happen. It's, yeah. Yeah, this is this year. I have no doubt. Barring weird
Why do
catastrophe.
you believe that, though? Because I thought it was coming out last year, and it didn't come out last year.
I didn't. The other thing, of course, is that even if you only half believe it's coming out this year, it's too valuable to not put in the draft. You can't not pick it. I think it's been half a decade They've talked about it enough times that's about how many times Nintendo talks about something before it comes out. We know nothing else major coming for this year. And I don't see any other alternative unless they're going to throw a Splatoon 2 and Pikmin 4 and call it a day, which they might. But I think if it doesn't come out this year, you're going to start seeing some displeasure.
Okay. Now, I will say this. If it does come out this year, I think it's the no-brainer number one pick.
Yeah. There's not a chance in... I mean, this thing has a solid shot at 100 Metacritic.
Yes. Which, I don't know too many other games you can say that about.
I don't know. They'd all be Nintendo games, though.
Pretty much. That old Nintendo bump. Mm-hmm. But I picked this last year. Didn't happen. I think maybe it was drafted the year before, too. That's why I'm nervous about it. Like, I just don't think that it's a sure thing that we actually get it this year. But if it is, it's hands down the number one pick. If it didn't come out last year when they had the 35th anniversary of the franchise to celebrate. So I'm definitely a little nervous about it. But we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, my first overall pick and the first overall pick of the 2022 draft is Breath of the Wild 2. Matt, what is your first pick of the draft?
God of War Ragnarok.
God of War Ragnarok. Clear number 2. Yeah. Believe me, if I wasn't willing to take the risk on Zelda, this would have been my first pick. God of War 2018, my pick for Game of the Generation for last generation.
Now, here's the thing about Ragnarok. First off, I'm not 100% sure it's coming this year either. It could slip. We saw that with Horizon last year. Sony is not afraid of having nothing in the fall because they have Call of Duty to fall back on.
Yeah, it's been proven, that's for sure.
But I do think this is this year. I'll give it a 90% confidence rating. The other thing...
I'm at least 90.
Yeah, the other thing, and this is probably a lesser, a non-zero chance thing, not a likelihood. There is a possibility that this gets a higher score than Zelda.
There is.
Because Zelda... It's not impossible that Zelda is either too similar or too different from the last one that the reviews kind of go more in the 85 realm. It's like, and that'll so enough of those drag the score down to the point that it's like, whereas I think God of War is going to deliver more God of War, bigger and better and badder, and there's nothing you can really say against that.
I also feel like there are some.
And there's a lot less time in the bucket waiting for Ragnarok.
I also feel like there has been a lot of time since Breath of the Wild came out, and I think a lot of people maybe are second-guessing their initial impressions of that game, maybe. Mm-hmm. We'll see. But
and whatever stupid new gimmick Nintendo shoved in there better be good, because that's going to ride on.
Yeah. So, like if I wouldn't have taken Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever the hell it ends up being called, I would have absolutely taken God of War Ragnarok.
Like if I'd picked first, I would probably still would have picked God of War.
Would you? Over Zelda? Interesting. Okay. I can see that totally.
I just think God of War is a sliver more dependable.
Yeah.
And I only say that because Nintendo's more likely to fuck with the formula.
But also,
you know what I mean?
A certain segment of critics are far more likely to give Nintendo games a higher
true.
Score than
it may not matter.
I hate to say it, but it's just true. It's just I'll be honest with you, in these drafts, I always lean a little bit in Nintendo's direction.
True. I think that factor is also in play with God of War.
Yeah.
That last game bought this franchise a huge amount of goodwill.
Rightfully so. It's an amazing game. Okay. So there are both of our first picks in the draft. So 1, 2, Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, God of War Ragnarok. Now keep in mind, the SIFTD Fantasy Challenge is open now, which is what you guys can participate in. You probably won't be able to find it on the site. There'll be promotion to it a little bit later. But you should absolutely watch what Matt and I are doing here before you go and fill out your SIFTD Fantasy Challenge ballots. Because we put at least I did. I put a lot of thought into this. I spent a lot of time researching for this. I don't just make my picks all willy-nilly. So at least maybe, there it is, in the chat right now, tensionmass.com/sifted. You can get to the Fantasy Challenge. Although I don't want you guys to leave. I want you to stay here and watch. Vincent. So anyway, use what we're doing as a framework. At the very least, like Matt and I, both of us, end up having at least a couple games that don't come out every year. So we're not infallible. Like, we get stuff wrong.
I think we're pretty solid this year.
I think we are, too. I think both our teams are going to end up having the vast majority of the games come out. But we'll see. You just never know with this stuff. Okay, and with my second pick in the 2022 SIFTD Video Game Fantasy League Draft, I will take Horizon Forbidden West.
I take one of your favorites. You take one of my favorites.
I was pleasantly surprised to get this. I thought maybe that you would not take God of War and you would take this because you are a huge Horizon fan. So am I. But like, I feel like I liked God of War a little bit more than Horizon, and I feel like maybe you liked Horizon a little bit more than God of War. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
So I thought maybe you'd take this first.
What I like doesn't mean
and then I
thought,
score. Damn, I'm getting God of War.
No, yeah, exactly. Like God of War is too good a pick to let go.
Yeah, but this also great pick, man.
Yeah, because the first what you're going to see here is the first pick was the super top scorers that probably but won't guaranteed come out this year.
Yeah.
The second picks were they're coming. Right. And they're going to be high.
Yeah.
And that's...
Pretty much.
Yeah. And so we dreamt big, and then we got practical.
Yeah. And the other part of it, too, is that you can hedge your bets a little bit with the alternates. Like, you just have to keep it in mind. How risky was I earlier? When you go to pick your alternates, I always look at how risky was I in my 10 picks. Mm-hmm. If there's a couple where I'm like, yeah, that's like 50-50, then I'm really conservative with my alternates.
Yeah, my risky picks are the last two.
Yeah.
You'll see. You'll see that.
Yep, I'd agree with that. And you guys will see. Also, we have to pick these beforehand. This is not happening live, by the way.
Yeah.
We have to pick these beforehand because I have to create all these graphics for the show so you guys can see them. So this draft actually happened via text message late last night. Matt and I just went back and forth picking games, and then I had to go through the process of setting up all the graphics and getting all the B-roll ready. To produce a show of this quality, it's the way we have to do it, unfortunately. So anyway, just so you guys know, we are not picking these live. We made these picks a while ago. Okay, Matt, it's your turn for your second pick in the draft. What is it?
Elden Ring.
Yep. I saw people...
With the chat already knew.
I saw people in the chat saying, like, Elden Ring and something else was, like, the safest.
Elden Ring and Horizon.
And Horizon were the safest.
Because they're going to come out.
Because you know they're coming. Because they have release dates very soon. And that's a big part of it. Guessing stuff that's going to come out. Mm-hmm. Like, that's kind of really the big X factor in this. If you get a 0 and you don't have an alternate to fill in there, it can doom your team. That's what happened to you last year.
Yep.
You had good picks, but you just didn't have enough
One
games.
of my alternates didn't come out. It
right.
It was a mess.
You got beat up bad last year. Elden Ring, do you need to explain why you're taking Elden Ring second overall?
No. This thing's going to be in the 90s.
Well, actually, it's fourth overall, but second on
There's no way this isn't one of the top scores of the year, whether it deserves it or not.
Yeah. Because the other thing, too, is that what you were saying earlier, you were talking about how, as a freelancer, someone sends you Dark Souls or whatever. You're like, no, like, I'm cool. If you are not into these games, you're not going to review them.
And I admit, also, one of the reasons I would turn this game down would be I don't want to make it work. Like, I just want to enjoy this thing.
It at your own pace. Yeah, totally get that. But look, again, I think our first 4 picks are on the money. Yeah. I think those are what the first 4 picks should be in this draft. Not telling you guys what to pick on your teams, but I'm just saying I think these first 4 picks are pretty solid for most video game fantasy drafts. I would argue anyway. So there you go, Elden Ring.
And you've had, because of the playable betas that came out, you already know response to it was positive.
Yep.
So
because people are loving it.
Even more so.
Yep, people are all over it. Okay, so it's time for my third pick of the 2022 draft. And you may be a little surprised to hear this one after what I just said in the last episode of Game Face, but my pick is Starfield. And if you watched the last episode of Game Face before you watched this, one of my 2022 predictions was that Starfield, when it comes out, it is going to be a disappointment. And I think it will be to a lot of players. I think it'll be a little buggy.
That doesn't mean the reviews are going to reflect that.
That doesn't mean that the reviews are going to be low. And that's what all this is about. That's what we're here doing. We're trying to guess which games are going to score the highest in their reviews. And I just find it really hard to believe that Bethesda's landmark open world sci-fi action RPG that people have literally waited, 8 years for at this point? For another Bethesda action RPG? I think it's going to be tough for people to pan it. So even though
11 years.
Since Skyrim?
Skyrim was wasn't Skyrim 2011? Because last year was the 10th anniversary.
Yes, it was. That's insane. So to make my point even further, it's been even longer than that. I find it really hard to believe that people are going to pan this game. I just don't.
This was definitely on my list. I think it was a little lower just because there's a part of me that doesn't quite trust it. Not because I think it'll come out as a mess, but because we just don't know enough about it.
But see, that's
it would be like number 2 or number 3 on my most anticipated personal list. Though. Yeah. I'm very excited about Starfield is my shit. You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was going to be on here somewhere.
That's the other thing that we have to do that you don't have to do in a Sifted Fantasy Challenge is Matt and I have to consider what the other one is going to do. Mm-hmm. So I know you're a huge Bethesda RPG fan, so I felt like I needed it here. Like even though I knew,
I would have probably picked it 4th or 5th.
Oh, okay,
you wouldn't. I mean,
so I reached for it.
This was the right place to get it, I think.
Okay,
because
I was scared that you were going to take it next.
You would have lost your next pick if you'd moved Starfield down.
Okay.
Because that was on my list, too.
So, look, I'm happy. That's the best first 3 I think I've ever had in a fantasy draft. Breath of the Wild 2,
but also,
Horizon,
I'm not remotely
Starfield.
unhappy with my top 3, because that's just how many great things are in the pipeline right now this year.
Yeah,
like it's
this
ridiculous.
year is amazing. You can't. It's going to be hard to screw up your fantasy drafts this year.
Like we got down to like 8 before I was like kind of feeling like I'm not super excited about this as a score, but I think it's going to be solid. You know, like
my pauses were splitting hairs because I had 2 good options that I was trying to decide between and trying to figure out whether you were going to take it or not with your next pick. It's all a part of the strategy of drafting. Okay, Matt, what is your 3rd pick?
Gran Turismo 7.
That's also a good pick. It just is. Those games always review extremely high.
Very high. It's back after a long period of time. Everyone's gonna be happy to see it. It's gonna be the first big racing title on PlayStation 5.
Yep.
It's gonna be gorgeous. I see no scenario where this is not rated very, very highly.
I don't even remember. What did Gran Turismo Sport do, Metacritic wise? It seems like it did not do as great.
I don't think it did, but it was kind of like a half a game.
It was right. It was like a spin-off kind of. Yeah, it wasn't a mainline Gran Turismo.
As long as this thing justifies that 7 in the title, I think it's going to be fun.
And it appears that it's going to. It looks like it's gigantic, which may explain why they did the little spin-off there. They were probably working on this side by side.
Yeah, I think this has been in the development for a long, long time.
Absolutely. So there you go. Your first 3, God of War Ragnarok, Elden Ring, and Gran Turismo 7. That's murderer's row as well, man. These teams are going to be good. I have a feeling that both of us are going to set our all-time score records. And if we don't, that would mean that my other prediction was wrong about 2022 being one of the best game release years ever. So I think that's going to happen. We'll see how it goes, though. You just never know how this stuff is going to work.
Oh, Ashes in the Hourglass points out that Fallout 4 was 2015, so it hasn't been 11 years.
Oh, I don't include Fallout in this. I should, but I don't.
Neither do I, because you said good game.
Right. Well, I did like Fallout 4. I thought it was great, but
I tried again. I just don't like Fallout 4.
Yep. Okay.
I don't even know. And you know what? Like last year, I did go back and I played all the way through Fallout 3 again.
Yeah, but you didn't play Fallout 4.
I don't like Fallout 4. I don't know. I don't know what it is about Fallout 4 I don't like. There's something about it just annoys me, which makes me a little nervous about Starfield.
Yeah.
Because like part of it is I just don't like the gunplay. I don't like the action gunplay.
I don't like the gunplay in Fallout 76.
Yeah, and so I'm a little worried about Starfield because I feel like that's inevitably going to have
the same gunplay probably. Yeah, I hear you. I'm there. I hear you. Okay, my 4th pick in the draft, and Matt, one that you said I wouldn't have got if I didn't take it here, I believe.
Yeah, this was pretty much next on my.
Okay, and I'm glad to hear that because I was not 100% sure, and that game is Bayonetta 3. Bayonetta 2. 92 Metacritic. But that was a long time ago.
Yep.
So I took that into account. I'm not counting on this getting a 9 or higher. I'm counting on it hopefully getting like an 8.5 or higher.
I think you're looking at about an 88 for this thing.
You think so?
That's my guess.
Because tastes have changed a lot since
Bayonetta but so is this. Like, this trailer is a very different approach to Bayonetta. And I think that's good.
I don't know if I like it more, though, than the old kind of angle. I mean, I know it was like it was very bro-ish, like the old games. Like I don't know that tone flies anymore.
I don't know. I think opinions vary on kind of the appropriateness of of Bayonetta. Bayonetta has always had more of a drag queen vibe to me.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Like it never felt like a sex symbol to drool over. It felt like a hot, powerful woman to aspire to be.
Like if you read like a lot of the development stories, and I just did this because Bayonetta was just the name that game. So I've been doing research on it the last couple of days. Like the developers, they were very concerned about making it over sexualized. That was their goal with like everything they did. So if you do feel that way, it wasn't on purpose from the developers. They were trying to make it over sexualized if they could. And this is definitely different. The tone is different, so you're right. Like it doesn't look like they've already kind of changed with the.
That also makes it a little sketchier because you're like, if it's so different from the other games, maybe
What
nobody
does
likes
that
it.
mean?
It's all this kaiju stuff. Like, who knows?
Yeah, I honestly, Matt, I thought I was reaching for this game a little bit here. I was a little nervous about it, but now that I've met with you live to talk about it, and I know that it would have been gone next pick, I feel a little bit better.
Also, I do believe this gets the Nintendo and the Platinum bump.
That could be.
So
that could be. I hope so. For these purposes,
I feel like I'm probably going to think of this as around a 70. Personally,
but
I think it's going to review higher, much higher than that.
Well, I hope it gets better than a 70, because otherwise, at my fourth pick, I'm freaking doomed if that's the case. But there you go, Bayonetta 3, my fourth pick in the draft, and now it's your turn, Matt. What's your fourth pick?
This is the one game on my list that I hate and don't want to play. Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin.
I will say this, Matt. I was a little surprised that you took it here.
I think this is going to review pretty well.
Because I would not have taken it for a while, just full disclosure. Because I played it and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is a Final Fantasy game.
I think it's going to review very well. I think it's going to irritate me how well it reviews.
Yeah.
Like, I was kind of trying to find a way to be less irritated by that, so at least it gets me somewhere in the fantasy draft. I just wasn't sure where you would put this, because it does seem like kind of a... Look, I played the demo. I've seen this thing. This game's trash.
Yeah, I really don't like it at all.
But you know what? So's Final Fantasy Remake, and everybody loves that.
Yeah,
so I'm not going by my belief on any of this stuff anymore. I'm saying this thing's going to get like an 80 something.
Yeah, that's the other thing that we should clarify here. Like, when we draft these games and we say, oh, it's going to get like an 80, that doesn't mean we think it's worthy of those scores. This is what we think all the other critics are going to give it when it's all said and done. We're trying to guess.
And I think this game, and here's the, this might be coming off of my, beliefs of how reviewing works and how I did that for a long time. This game is going to be, because this is a character action game that also has RPG elements that's based on Final Fantasy. Yeah. That means there is a very specific reviewer you are giving this game to. You need to give it to someone who cares about Final Fantasy, and you need to give someone who's good at character action games so they can finish it on a deadline, like we talked about with that Q&A just now.
Yeah.
And that is a very specific kind of person, and they are going to love this pile of shit.
They probably will.
So that's what I'm saying. I am metagaming this about 3 levels out. And maybe it doesn't deserve to be this high, but like... To be honest, I think part of it might have been that you picked Bayonetta 3, and my brain just went to the next character action game on the list, and was like, I'll see that one.
Okay.
Because I knew you weren't going to go for most of the rest of my list.
You're right. Yeah.
And I didn't go for the most of the rest of your list.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it works, though, with us. Yeah. Like, honestly, I think we agree on most stuff, generally, but we do have completely different tastes in games. And you know certain genres better than I do, and I know certain genres better than you do, and that comes into it as well, so... there's a lot of strategy that goes into this, people. There's no doubt about it. Okay. And now it's on to my 5th pick. And this is one that was on my team last year.
Yep. And on my team the year before that.
And on your team the year before that. And I really think it's going to come out this time. And that is Dying Light 2. I really think it's coming out this time.
I think it's going to happen. I think this one's going to happen.
It was supposed to come out like December 8th or something like that, and then they delayed it to this year. The game is pretty much done. It should be done.
By now, it'll come out in a week and a half. It better be done.
Yeah, I mean, if they delay it at this point, it couldn't be delayed more than a few months.
Here's the thing. I was never going to pick this.
Really?
No.
How come?
Because I don't trust this thing.
Really?
I don't. Something about me worries that this is going to get 70 or something.
Interesting.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it because I love the first one. But I also love the first one after playing it for a long... it took me a while to come around to it.
Yeah.
I have unsupportable visions of this thing getting, savaged in the reviews.
Okay.
For reasons that I can't quite
I would
explain.
be surprised if that happens. Because, again, I saw a demo of this a couple years ago, and a couple years ago it would impress me.
But but I'm worried about a Bioshock Infinite situation where this thing's had so much chopped out of it.
That's possible.
That, it's not that.
But it's 500 hours, Matt.
It doesn't mean it's good 500 hours.
Right. I totally get it. I'm just going on the fact that I saw a demo of it that really impressed me. 2, that I know that it's significantly different from the last one. But 3, that I know the parts that were good about the first game are still here. And so it's not going to turn off fans. It's going to ingratiate the game to people like me who only kind of liked the first game.
Yeah, my cyberpunk sense is tingling on this one.
Oh, no, Matt, don't say that. Well, look, even if it does end up getting a 7.7 or whatever, it's my 5th.
Yeah, at least it's coming out.
Yeah, and I know, and that's the other thing. I'm telling you, I am way more nervous about Breath of the Wild than you. I did a little bit of ass covering with the rest of my draft because of Breath of the Wild. I'll just full disclosure right now. I am not 100% sure it's coming out, and it's my first pick. So I'm like, I got to make sure that I have a full 10 games this year because my number one pick may not come out. And so I did play a little bit defensively with the draft this year. I'll just fully admit it. But as we saw with the Sifted Fantasy Challenge, the best thing you can do is get 10 scores.
Yeah.
That's really the key to like winning at video game fantasy.
The one person who got all 10 scores, not good, they won. And look at out of hundreds of people.
And some of the games that they had on there got like 7.1. Yeah. They weren't that great at games, but they knew they were coming out.
It's more important to get 10 scores.
Yep. Again, it's all about strategy, people.
Because a 65 is still better than 0.
That's right. A lot better. Like even a 40 is a lot better than a 0. It makes a difference. So anyway, there you go. Dying Light 2, my 5th pick in the 2022 draft. What about you, Matt? What's your pick?
Let's try this one again. Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. I think it's really going to happen.
I think it's going to work this time, Matt. I think
and
you're
I
finally going to get it.
I don't see a possibility this doesn't review real well.
So, Matt, I was going to pick this game. I literally was going to pick this game, and I stopped and thought about it for 1 second. I was like, I can't do it. I'm like, Matt is too far down this road. I cannot let him not finish the drive. Like he needs to see this through to see what this game gets and to have it on his team, because I was like, Matt has committed to this game for too long. I think you've drafted it 2 years. This will be 3 years in a row now. Is that right?
So. At least two.
So I couldn't do it, and I was like, Dying Light's cool with me anyway. I was kind of splitting hairs between the two games, and I was like, I've got to give Matt Lego Skywalker Saga. So, and we talked about this in the last episode of Game Face. This game's been in development for like 6 years.
Yeah.
It should be like the greatest Lego game ever. Like it should be.
This should be the best thing they've ever made.
Yeah. They've had enough time. And
if it's not, we're going to have words.
And, I mean, let's be honest, the trailers look awesome.
They do. I mean, I don't see any way this is lower than an 80.
Me either. No way. Like, I would really struggle to see this below an 85.
Yeah.
And getting it there at that pick, that's good value. So that's a great pick, even though I let you have it, Kyle.
Yeah. Justin Horman, we just saw this game with a release year on it.
What is he saying?
He says, when was the last time we saw this? Going to be canceled? Is it canceled? I'm like, no, they just did a new trailer.
I can understand why people might wonder if it's been canceled.
Sure. Took forever. I don't know what the hell happened there. I'd love to see a behind the scenes documentary on this one.
Yeah, I can see why some people might be a little skeptical. And speaking of games that people may be skeptical of, Matt, I believe you're skeptical of this game.
Yep.
And that is Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. Again, we just talked about this on Game Face in our third-party preview for 2022. I'm really excited for this game. I'm not a big Suicide Squad fan, honestly. Like, I don't even really care about that IP at all. But I do think the developer, Rocksteady, behind this has made some really, really good games, some really, really polished games. And I will say this, even though I'm not a big Suicide Squad
certainly
fan,
had the time to work on it.
Yeah. And even though I'm not a big fan of Suicide Squad, I do feel like it nails the tone and it nails the characters. I like that as I said in Game Face, I like that all the characters are completely different from each other. It's not like, hey, this girl has a gun and this girl has a gun, but this girl has a different ultimate and this girl has like a different grenade she can use. Like, all 4 characters feel completely different to use, which could be a bad thing too, because if you're like playing cooperatively and you're stuck with like Shark Dude, like that could suck. But I think the pedigree of Rocksteady is beyond reproach. I know you didn't like Arkham Knight. I did like Arkham Knight. I've liked everything that Rocksteady's made. I've never disliked the game.
I replayed Arkham Knight a couple years ago to make sure, and yes, I still hate that game.
Well, luckily, I like it more than you, which allowed me to get this
barely a Batman game.
I could maybe agree with that. I wasn't so concerned about like whether it was a great Batman game. I just enjoyed playing it. But I'm glad, because it allowed me to get this game with like my 6th pick or whatever. So, and I didn't think that I would ever get a Rocksteady game this low in a draft. But again, 2022 is so flipping awesome that
also,
games like this fall down.
Rocksteady's been out of action so long that like you don't know.
You don't know if people left that were integral parts of the development team. It's hard to know.
But it'll probably review. It's a good middle of the pack, I think.
I'm cool with that at my 6th slot. I'm more than cool with it. I'm really happy about it. So that's all that matters. Is I'm happy with my team or not when it's all said and done. At least for that pick, I definitely am. All right, now it's time for your 6th pick, Matt.
Total War Warhammer 3. I think this is going to get in the 90s, but I knew you weren't going to pick it yet.
Yet was the operative word. I would not have picked it yet, but it was definitely on my radar to take in the draft. Both the first 2 games have gotten close to a 9.
This game should be higher, but I knew you weren't going to go for it that soon.
So you can let it slip.
all.
Again, that's strategy. Knowing your opponent, like where are they going to take something that you're interested in. If they're not as interested in it, then you can wait and you can load up and get a couple other games before you make that pick.
Last one got a 92.
Did it?
Yeah.
I knew it was like around a 9. And there's no reason why this one won't get that as well. And again, in your 6th slot, that may be the best value of this whole draft, honestly. Provided there isn't some complete catastrophe with the game.
Yeah, I mean...
And I can't foresee that happening.
No, I think Creative Assembly is pretty on target most of the time when it comes to getting stuff done when they say they're getting it done.
Yep, and as we said, a great year for RTS games if you're a fan of the genre. It's been dry for a couple years, but this year you are being taken care of. You are getting hooked up. Okay, time to move on to our 7th picks of the draft. This one is the one where I feel like I may have screwed up a little bit and maybe reached.
Agreed.
You do agree? Yeah. I maybe.
And I'm not going to say trying to rip the game here. I'm very excited about this game. I think this is definitely on my radar, but I can definitely see this one breaking one way or the other.
Me too. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I did regret it after I picked it, and that game is Forspoken. It is. I maybe should have had this for like an alternate or something, but I'm really intrigued by the game. And I went back and I looked at the scores that Final Fantasy 15 got, and I was like, that scored way higher than it probably should have.
Yep.
And I know this doesn't have the Final Fantasy name, which
it doesn't get the Final Fantasy bump, and it's already been sort of poked at for representation issues. And
it has. I didn't even know that.
Because the main character is black, and there are no black writers on the team. They got black consultants or something. There's some.
That seems awful picky.
There's some questions about her depiction in terms of how and it's rough because you haven't seen a whole lot of the game yet. But it's already kind of the center of
great.
I don't think that'll necessarily affect how it reviews.
It might,
but we'll see. It's not. It's like it's just one of those things where I'm like, I think this is going to be a mid to high 80s game.
Yeah,
but it could be a 70. Like this is one of those things where it's like
it's too risky for where I took it.
Yeah, you never know with especially even with the Sony exclusive stuff, you never know when they're going to accidentally pop out a Days Gone. You know, Days Gone's still reviewed fine though.
I will admit, like I definitely was leaning towards console exclusives with this. So you can see it: Breath of the Wild, Horizon, Starfield, Bayonetta.
Yeah, and Vincent does make a good point that most of the places that care the most about the controversy over the racial representation don't put scores on their reviews.
That's true. That's funny, Vincent, because it's true. That's hilarious, actually. So anyway, I was a little disappointed in myself after this pick. I was like,
I was surprised.
I made a mistake there, but I'm man enough to admit when I make mistakes.
Forspoken I had down like one of my last picks if I was going to run out of stuff.
Yeah, in hindsight, it should have been like an alternate or whatever. But then
I don't know if it should be well, maybe, because like Forspoken's almost guaranteed to come out, so it's a good alternate in that regard.
I viewed this game a little bit like how I viewed It Takes Two last year for the draft. I thought it was like this game that people didn't know that much about, but it had kind of this spark to it that could make it bounce in the right direction. But I took It Takes Two as an alternate last year, which I ended up having to use. But still, I took it as an alternate, which is where I probably should have taken this game as well. So, but anyway, we all make mistakes. That's mine from this draft, but I am man enough to admit it. What's your next pick, Matt?
My next pick is it's the one on my list that I picked just because I like it. And I'm just like, I don't know how this is going to do, but I think it's cool, and it might be a sleeper in terms of that, and that is Sifu.
Sifu, the Kung Fu. I said last week on Game Face, I was like, it's kind of like a Kung Fu game, and you were like, no.
Yeah, it is.
It is a Kung Fu game.
So this is and also, this does pique my interest because I'm a fighting game combat person, and like, this looks real cool. It's like maybe the coolest sort of like kung fu combat thing since maybe Sleeping Dogs.
Yeah.
The combat system is very, very driven by kind of classic kung fu movies and wuxia, and they're really trying to get the impact right. Like they're gonna.
They nail it.
Like you're trying to make it look like the fist hits the part of the body that it hits, and then the body reacts because it was hit in that part, and not just like the fist was up here, so your head twitches. No, your body's going to move the direction that you got hit from the point of contact you got hit.
Yep.
It's a really cool thing they're trying to do, and the fights are explosive and fun to watch, even if you're not playing. This has been on my radar for a while. I'm pretty happy that it's coming out so soon.
I've also noticed that a lot of critics are on it.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people tweeting stuff about it.
Yeah,
there's
been a lot of
usually
chatter.
a good sign. Yeah.
People have seen some builds and seen some preview stuff. Are like, oh, seafood. Yeah, so that's usually a good sign. Hopefully, the people that are tweeting about that are also the ones who get assigned to review it.
Who end up reviewing the game. Yeah. It's usually a good sign, though. Like if the usual suspects are tweeting positive stuff. Look, they all talk. Like, people who are reviewing games, they're all on like little lists with each other and on text threads and things like that, even though they shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. What they're doing, the versatility and the usage of the environment and the objects around and kicking them. I mean, this is if you grew up watching Jackie Chan, this is something your eye should be on this one.
Yep.
And I just think it has a shot at being a surprise high rater.
I would agree. I think it's one of those games that has a spark. Mm-hmm. There's something about it. You can't quite put your finger on it, and they're a little risky to pick those games, but fundamentally the game looks sound, which gives you a floor, as they say. Mm-hmm. And now you're just looking for some upside. Hopefully the critics, and hopefully the game is great. I mean, that's a big part of it, too, is how the game actually turns out. So, but an intriguing game, and it'll be interesting to see. That's a wild card for you, I think.
Yeah.
Is it Saifu or Sifu?
I think it's Sifu.
Okay.
Or Sifu.
I'm going to try to get that one.
I don't know.
Okay.
If it was Saifu, it should be SAI.
That's true. Yep. You're right.
Or SEI.
Yeah.
Maybe Seifu. That's more like Japanese. I don't know. I think it's Sifu.
Okay. Now we're to the 8th pick. I'm to my 8th pick. And my 8th pick, I take Pokemon Legends Arceus, whatever the hell you want to call it. I was really confused on where to take this game because it could be like the God's gift to Pokemon fans, or it could be just this thing.
This is like a half-assed piece of garbage.
Right.
Like you just don't know which way that's going to break.
And it's the 8th pick, a mainline Pokemon game, although some fans probably wouldn't call this mainline. I call it mainline. Any big budget Pokemon game.
I don't think there's a mainline. It's from the Legends series.
Right. I get it. I know how Pokemon fans
series
are.
of one.
That's why I said that. Yeah, I get that. To me, this is a mainline Pokemon game. It's getting probably a bigger budget than any Pokemon game ever made.
Like, this is probably what the mainline series should have become about 5 installments ago.
Like the GameCube era.
Yeah.
And it's what people have been asking for a long time. So I know people are going to give it a chance. We'll just see if they actually execute on it or not.
Yeah, this was just such a... This isn't... In terms of review score, I think it's going to sell like crazy. But I think, in terms of review score, I think this is just one giant X factor.
It really is.
Like, I was not confident enough about this game to try it. Like, I might have put it in my alternates.
No,
just because you know it's coming out.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I was thinking about it several picks earlier. Because
good you picked it this late, because I was never going to go.
You were never
going to
take it
until later.
Okay, so I played that one right at least. I waited on it. But I don't know. It is a huge X factor. I think a lot of people are waiting for reviews for this one, like with bated breath.
I wish I could.
Yeah. It's coming out soon.
Yeah.
So this will be one of the first games from our draft where we'll see where we're kind of headed as far as our scores are concerned.
Next week, Friday.
Yeah. Which means I should be getting code from Nintendo for it here soon. Which means I'll know.
January's almost over.
Yeah, it is almost. It's insane. Time just keeps whipping on by.
It's not almost over. It's like the 18th. But like,
yeah.
You know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. It comes out before the end of the month, so it's literally like 10 days away.
Yeah, but it's also like before you know it, it's going to be Thursday night, and you're going to be waiting for it to go, to download.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's just like, what happened?
I know what happened to like the last 10 days or whatever. That's the way it is. When you're busy, that's the way it goes. But anyway, again, that's a little bit risky, but you'll see. So as I said earlier, like, I cover my ass in this draft. Like, when I get to my alternates, like, there are games that are coming out for sure in like the next like 3 or 4 months, because there are some games that you're not sure.
In all, you're probably getting a high 70, low 80 on that thing, one way or the other.
On Arceus?
Yeah. Like,
maybe.
Unless something is catastrophically wrong with it.
It could
which
be.
could be, but
you see that frame rate in the first trailer?
True. But who gets dinged for frame rate in reviews anymore?
I ding games for frame rate.
You do, but you don't. I'm talking about IGN and shit.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. I'm definitely a little nervous about it. And what made me feel worse was when you made your pick next. And I was like, I just effed up.
Yeah.
It just totally, I didn't see it. It just slipped by the cracks, and you drafted
Saints Row.
Saints Row. The reboot of Saints Row, I guarantee it's going to get a higher score than Arceus. Guaranteed. There's no excuse for this. I totally screwed up. And I think as soon as you picked
said
it,
something.
I was like,
Yeah.
great pick. I screwed it up. So, yeah, I made a mistake. It may end up costing me my back-to-back-to-back championships in this league.
Yeah, because there's a chance that the winner on this one comes down to a matter of like a spread of like 20 points
I
or
know.
something.
Yep. It's going to be
Like for once, this could come down to literally like
a nail-biter.
individual point scores on each of the games.
And it could ultimately, like a game that's reviewed now, like Arceus, like maybe it gets a high score or a decent score at the beginning of the year. And as the year goes on and people keep adding reviews to the game, those are the people who usually give it lower scores, and it could go down. And like literally, I think it could be close enough where at the last week, like we figure out who won this. Like it's going to be crazy. And I made a mistake, and you took advantage of it. And so you got Saints Row with your 8th pick.
Yeah, because on this one, after I picked Sifu, and part of the reason I picked that was because I was like, I'm going to go for my own boutique Sony exclusive. And after that, I was like, oh, I probably should have gone for Saints Row. And then you went for Arceus.
And then I screwed up. And you were like, thank God. Shane messed up. I don't know what Vincent is
Vincent did his own draft at like 12 people or other people or something, and so he's listing what pick the games we pick were in that draft. Picking Saints Row at number 32 is ridiculous. Like
that's insane.
You're passing up an 80 something or higher.
Yeah,
by automatically on that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they don't have an affinity for the Saints Row games like we do because they're younger than us. And Saints Row, let's be honest, hasn't exactly been relevant for a while.
No, that's true. And like Agents of Mayhem is not technically Saints Row. It's the same universe, the same multiverse. But that did not review well.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to make Agents of Mayhem again.
No, I don't think they will either.
They're going back to the drawing board.
Yep. Okay, so that was your 8th pick. Down to our last 2 picks for our core team, and then we still have 2 alternates after that. My next pick is, and I actually feel good about this one, is Stray. Mm-hmm. You guys may not even remember this game.
I didn't.
You didn't remember it?
When you put that up, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good one. I should have picked a cat game.
This is the kind of indie AA game where you're like, oh,
this is the bread and butter of the last 3 picks. This is just,
It is. This is also the kind of game that comes out of nowhere to get really high review scores. I feel really good about getting this here in the 9th slot. I was hoping, you're a big cat guy too. You love cats like I do. I was like, I'm surprised that Matt had forgotten about it, or he just decided he didn't want to pick it.
I did forget about it. For whatever reason, it was not on the list I was working from.
It is definitely the most unique game that I drafted. And I'm guessing on Vincent's draft or whatever, it was probably 99th. But I don't care. I'm very happy to get Stray in the 9th slot here. I think it's going to be one of the games that everybody remembers from 2022. And it may not be perfect. It may be a little buggy, maybe a little janky. But I think the core concept of it is going to overcome all that stuff. I'm very confident that this game gets at least an 8. And when I'm drafting for my 9th slot, I'm very happy with an 8 there. So that's where I was headed, and it's
going to get sunk by dog people.
It could. There are some people that hate cats.
Oh, a lot of people hate cats.
I like
Those
them
people
both,
are not allowed in my house.
but I'd rather have a cat because they're low maintenance.
Oh, I love dogs. Yeah, exactly. I love dogs, but I don't want to be owned by one, as I say.
Matt, I do feel a little bit like your draft this year was like your reclamation of last year's draft. Because you managed to pick up a couple games that you had on your team last year that fell out.
Yeah, these last 2 are games that I'm also not saying won't fall out. Because
I think this one's pretty safe.
But we'll see. You never know. This is Baldur's Gate 3, which was on last year's as well.
Had it on your team last year.
Theoretically, will come out of early access this year. It should be done this year.
I thought it was going to be done last year.
It was supposed to be done a year from the beginning of early access, which was like October, November 2020. Yeah. They missed that. They redid a bunch of stuff. They took a lot of feedback in case. But this game is great. Like already, this game is like there's no doubt on betting on this game because I think this game is going to be potentially in the 90s if it comes out.
I think it will be in the 90s. Absolutely. So, I mean, the word of mouth on this game already is through the roof. and your opinion of it. I mean, I respect your opinion on these games a lot, and the things that you've said about it. Again, that's your 9th pick. I don't know, man. You may have whooped me this time. Now that I'm really looking at stuff, it's so interesting how you do it. And then you sit and you talk about it, and it's interesting how your opinion will change over the time that we do the draft. But I do think I'll have a full team this year, so that gives me a fighting chance. That's for sure. But that's a great pick there, Matt. It just is. Yeah, you could have a 9 in your 9 slot.
They get it done.
Yep, if they get it done. Okay, my last pick for my full team, and honestly, I don't know if I'll end up using any of my alternates this year. My last pick, and I am very happy about this one. I feel like this was a good pick at this spot in the draft. My last pick, my 10th pick, is Hollow Knight Silk Song. Pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that's a guaranteed high score and a guaranteed release, I think.
The original Hollow Knight has a 92 Metacritic. I don't expect this one to score as high, but my guess is
at least in the 84.
8, like 8. I'm guessing 8.5. Worst case scenario at the 10th slot. That's pretty good. I'll be honest with you, I had actually kind of forgotten about this game.
Yeah, so did I.
And then I just started looking through one of my lists, and I stumbled across it, and I was like, oh, there's my ringer right there in the 10 hole. If it does get a 9 at the 10 slot, I'll be really happy. I'll do a dance when we go through the results of this thing on camera. I promise you.
I think it might.
It might. We'll see. But just getting anything that I could even consider that in the 10th slot, I'm good with that. All day, every day. And here we go, Matt. Your final pick for your base team in the 2022 draft.
Final pick. We'll see if this comes out. We'll see if it scores at all. But it is red to fall.
Yeah, well...
theoretically, a summer release. That's what they said.
Initially, it's like early in the year was what they were saying at first, and then they're now like, oh, no, we have to delay it till summer. Well, I don't know if you saw, but like there were leaks yesterday from the beta that people were playing, and screenshots and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's
in there.
It's coming.
It exists.
It's coming. I mean, they're doing a beta right now.
And I'm kind of hoping it gets some kind of a Deathloop Arcane bump. I know it's not the same Arcane, but...
I chose between this and Hollow Knight.
Yeah,
and I'm hoping this is riskier.
I'm betting on the coming out.
The Arcane bump.
But
that was an Arcane bump, man.
With the reviewers,
yeah, there is.
Like it's like, oh, the makers of Deathloop, and it's like, oh, it's gonna. I think that's gonna influence it.
It might. And as you know, I'm really excited for this game. Like I've been talking this game up ever since it debuted. But Matt ended up with it on his team. I passed on it. I went for Hollow Knight. Maybe I ended up regretting it. I don't know. There's just no way to know right now. So anyway, there are our teams of 10. Now we're going to pick our 2 alternates. We may or may not ever even use these. Again, these games are only brought onto our teams.
I think you will not use any of your alternates.
You don't think?
I think everything on your list is coming out this year.
I played it pretty close. Yeah, I played it pretty conservative this year, for sure. I think the big X factor for my team is whether it comes out Hollow Knight and Suicide Squad. Those are the only 2 I'm a little nervous about. Because Hollow Knight's been kind of underground.
Yeah.
They haven't like released a lot of media for it or done a lot of previews or anything, but they just like will say, yo, it's coming that year. So that might be a little dicey, but we'll see. So anyway, it's time to get to our alternates. We both have 2, despite the fact that there's 3 slots for the graphics there. I just totally screwed that up. My apologies. My first alternate is Tiny Tina's Wonderland's Wonderland. I still don't know what it is. Whatever it is, that's my pick for my first alternate. I don't have a ton of faith in this game to score exceptionally high. As I said, Borderlands 3 is sitting at like a 72 Metacritic right now. But this game is coming out for sure in March. And both of my alternates for this year, I was like, I'm just making sure they're coming out. And so I did... I feel like I did maybe lowball myself a little bit by picking this game where I'm just like, I just want to make sure I get something that's coming out that's not going to be terrible. And so maybe I could have found something with a little more upside, but at this point I was just concerned about making sure I ended up with 10 games. Although
there's not a lot left that is guaranteed to be out this year.
Yeah. Once release days started getting past June, that's where I was like, I don't know, man. I've been burned by that too many times. And so I went with Tiny Tina. I don't think it'll be a terrible game no matter what. Do I think it's going to be a Game of the Year contender? No, but that's why it's my alternate. And so that's why it ended up where it did. Matt, what's your first alternate?
Another land. Kirby and the Forgotten Lands.
Yeah, we poked some fun at this last week on the show. because it looks weird.
Kirby, we really are The Last of Us.
It's like Kirby crossed with The Last of Us, which I don't know, but look, it's Nintendo.
It's going to get a decent score one way or the other. I mean, I bet it gets at least what Tiny Tina gets.
I'll be honest, Matt, I cannot remember the last time a Nintendo first-party game got like a horrible review score or got anything below like a 7.5.
Did Codename Steam get
panned a
little bit?
Wow, you pulled that one out. That's impressive. That's really impressive. I think it got like a 6 point something.
Like that.
Yeah. Somehow, some way, their games always get at least like around a 7.
Yeah.
So, and again, these alternates, like that's coming out. They just announced like in March or
April.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I was surprised to see because they just announced it like 3 months ago, and it's already done and getting ready for release. Definitely an interesting game. The first 3D platformer starring Kirby. Usually all those games are 2D and play from a side-scrolling perspective. I'm intrigued by this game, I guess is the best way I can put it. But Nintendo generally doesn't make junk, so I think you're probably pretty safe with like a 7.5 on this with some upside. So I think that's pretty good. And okay, it's time for me to make my last pick of the SIFTD 2022 Video Game Fantasy League Draft. And it's not even really a pick, it is my last alternate. And as I said, I went really safe with my alternates, and that holds true with my last pick. And my last pick is Babylon's Fall, a game that just last week I said I had very little interest in, and I didn't think it was going to be very great.
But it did go gold.
But it went gold,
so
and
it
has a hard release date, and it's a platinum hack and slash. Those are generally good for at least a 7.5. It doesn't interest me that much, but who knows? Maybe when you start digging into it, it's actually really good. Platinum also generally does not make junky games. Like the worst Platinum game that I've played is that Transformers War for Cyber, whatever it was. That's the worst Platinum game I've ever played, and I still played that all the way through to the end. So it looks very generic, and I struggle to really find anything unique about it, but it is, I know for a fact it's coming out this year. It is a Platinum game, and so I do give it a little bit of a bump for that. And so Babylon's Fall is my very last pick and my last alternate for the 2022 draft. And now, Matt, it's your turn to make your last pick.
King of Fighters 15.
Yep. I liked that you managed to slide in a fighting game in the end there.
It's definitely coming this year.
I mean, you're just hoping for a 7.
Yeah.
This game will probably get way
solid.
higher than that.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Little fighting game representation.
Yeah. I mean, little. Because there are no fighting games anymore,
No,
Matt.
not much.
Have you discovered that? Really aren't fighting games anymore?
Here and there.
Like, re-releases and weird stuff like that, but...
Yeah, I mean, there's some BlazBlue stuff. The Grand Blue Fantasy's been going on. Dragon Ball a few years ago. That Power Rangers Battle for the Grid thing keeps getting DLC left and right. That is one of the biggest expansion of rosters I've ever seen. Like, that started with like a little 8-person grid. Right. Now it's like that.
50.
It's ridiculous.
They don't give up.
No.
They at least keep releasing new DLC for it. So there you go. Those are our teams. Now comes the moment where you guys tell us which team is better. We're willing to take a couple questions. If you guys are getting ready to do your SIFTD Fantasy Challenge draft and make your own draft picks, if you have any questions, maybe you're waffling on 2 games. You want Matt and I to give you some advice on which one to pick.
Yeah, people saying we forgot Mario plus Rabbids. I did not forget Mario plus Rabbids. I don't think it's coming this year.
Yeah, I didn't forget it either. I stared at it for the last 40 minutes of the draft, and there's just no definitive word that it's coming this year. Like, it says, like, all over the internet, 2022, but if you try to find anything from Ubisoft that says 2022,
it's all very vague.
There's nothing. So I stayed
it might
away
be,
from it.
But like there was not enough evidence.
I intentionally stayed away from it
because I do think that's going to rate well.
Oh yeah, it's going to get at least an 8.5.
If that was coming out in like April and had a date on it,
Done
like
deal.
absolutely,
I'd have had it at like my 7th.
Yeah, we've been right in there.
We were aware of that game. I was.
Yeah, trailer says 2022. God of War Ragnarok trailer says 2021.
Yeah,
don't believe everything you read, kids.
Yeah, and then we picked Triangle Strategy. Yeah, I mean, I picked
Triangle
last year.
Strategy. Yeah.
Wait, last year, what game did I take? I took an obscure JRPG last year. It was it's by Square Enix's Tokyo team. We talked about it, the sequel or one of the games from the same team last week.
I keep wanting to say
Octopath Traveler.
I was going to say Octopus Overlord. So I'm like, that's not what that is.
And it ended up not doing that well. Like
No.
I think it got like a 7.7 or something like that. So I just stayed away
Bravely
from
Default 2.
Bravely Default 2, that's what it was. Yeah. And I stayed away from it this year. Yep. Because it just didn't deliver. I thought it would get like an 8 point something, and it just didn't.
I don't think it was on my radar at the time. I should have picked Tales of Arise last year.
Yeah.
That did real well.
Yep.
That would have been a good 8th pick or something.
Let's take a look at chat here and see what people are saying. I like Matt's number 1 the most, but overall prefer Shane's list. Now, I will just jump in here and say that last year, it was unanimous that you destroyed me in the draft. You remember that?
Well, if anything come out.
Right. But that's part of the game, is
Yeah.
knowing whether stuff's going to come out or not. And I ended up winning pretty handily because games didn't come out, but that's part of it. So I would not, if people pick me, what I'm saying is, like, if people pick me, don't get down because everyone's wrong, usually.
I think you have the riskier list.
I would agree with that. Yep. Congram, I think Shane's is a bit risky with Bayonetta and Starfield. Even Breath of the Wild 2 could be risky with release. Okay.
I think Bayonetta is more risky than Zelda, yeah. But I do think Bayonetta is coming this year.
Vincent says Babylon's Fall might be a 5. If a Platinum game gets a 5, the Earth may just cave in on itself.
Yeah, some of their D-team ones have scored not too great, but I think Babylon's Fall is going to be better than that.
We'll see, but I may not need it.
Doesn't make me care about it, but...
OCD Master 1, why do you never pick FIFA or COD for these? Has always come out and don't get less than a 79. Well, because we did go down that trail for a while with NBA 2K.
Yeah.
And NBA 2K last year got like a 6.8. Mm-hmm. Like, you just don't know. There could be one feature in those games that are broken.
Yeah, like the advantage of the sports games, the regular franchise games, is that, yes, they are definitely going to come out.
Yeah.
But that also means they're going to come out hell or high water, and sometimes they're just broken.
Yeah.
You know, like, that doesn't mean they're going to review well.
One Super Master Gamer, I like both lists. Solid picks by both. I think we both have good teams, too. And I think both of us will probably have full 10 games this year. Versing Torax. I'm not 100% sold on Ragnarok shipping this year, either. I'd give it about 95%.
Yeah.
Ashes in the Hourglass. Shane's list has a higher potential. Vincent is saying people really, really didn't like the beta for, I guess he's talking about Babylon's Fall. Great. That's great to hear. Just what I wanted to hear. And Juan X Solo brings up Platinum had that Korra game. That's exactly what Matt was talking about when he said the D team. Yeah. Congram, Platinum seems spread thin. Not that I know their priorities, but seem uncertain. They have 3 games coming out this year.
Yep.
And that's a lot. So, point taken, absolutely. So anyway, there you go. That's the SIFTD 2022 Video Game Fantasy Draft, the original Video Game Fantasy Draft. We did it first, and we'll keep doing it.
Video
it's
Game
fun.
Fantasy Draft Classic.
Yeah. I even thought about like putting the original in like script writing on the logo or whatever, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
The real Ghostbusters.
I'm just glad other people are doing it and they're having fun with it. And like I said, check out, and most people who are watching this, the archive of this, the SIFTD Fantasy Challenge is live right now. If you're watching the archive, just look up in the header of SIFTD.net, and there'll be a link there where you can go. Just like last year, if you win the challenge, and there only is one winner every year, if you win and you're a patron, you win 2 games. If you win and you're not a patron, you get 1 game. So anyone can play. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're totally eligible. You don't have to be a patron to play. But if you do win, you only win 1 game instead of 2. Or you could become a patron and support us. And then if you win, you get 2 games. And if you want to support us, head to patreon.com/SIFTD. Any final words, Matt?
No.
Good draft, bro.
We will see.
We'll see where the chips fall at the end of it all. It's always fun keeping track of this for the rest of the year. And like I said, we'll keep bringing up the SIFTD challenge here on Game Face. We'll pop it back up into the header of SIFTD here and there so you can check in on your progress. I would recommend, though, that once you make your picks, bookmark that page because the page technically is not even on SIFTD. So you can't bookmark it using SIFTD's bookmarks. You need to just bookmark it in your browser to make sure you can go back whenever you want. But we'll keep bubbling it back up so you guys can check on your team and see how you're doing. And once again, by the way, congratulations to Wilson, who won the SIFTD Fantasy Challenge for 2021. So that's it from us. We'll see you guys next Tuesday right here, same time, same place at twitch.tv/SIFTDgames. We'll see you then.